Well, hello, everyone. I'm Robert Toomey, one of the faculty in visual arts, and I'd like to welcome you here on behalf of the Department of Visual Arts guest speaker series. So we're thrilled to welcome Shirley Tse as our speaker tonight as part of this Department of Visual Arts guest speaker series. Before I turn it over to Michelle to introduce Shirley, I'd like to acknowledge the support of the Bruton Family Foundation, which makes the speaker series possible.
Thank you, Robert. I'm Michelle Sway. I am in the MFA program here in the Department of Visual Arts, and we are so excited to introduce Shirley and have Shirley here with us today. Shirley Tse, born in Hong Kong, lives and works in California. She has created sculptural interventions that interrogate notions of place, politics, and ecology. Her work has been exhibited widely in the United States and internationally, at venues including the Biennale of Sydney, MoMA PS1, SF MoMA. At the 58th Venice Biennale, Tse was the first female artist to represent Hong Kong in a solo exhibition. Her works are in the permanent collections of M+ Hong Kong, Hong Kong Heritage Museum, New Museum, Vancouver Art Gallery, Rhode Island School of Design Museum. She has been the recipient of numerous awards, including the John Simon Guggenheim Memorial Foundation Fellowship, City of Los Angeles Individual Arts Fellowship, California Community Foundation Fellowship for Visual Arts Mid-Career Award, International Sculpture Center Outstanding Educator Award, Anonymous Was a Woman Award. Tse has been on the faculty at California Institute for the Arts since 2001, where she held the Robert Fitzpatrick Chair in Art from 2018 to 2021. Welcome, Shirley.
Thank you, Michelle, for the introduction, and thank you, UCSD, for inviting me. I am speaking from Lompoc, California, which is a town about an hour north of Santa Barbara, and since one of the work that I'm going to share with you this afternoon is called Lompoc Story, I would take this opportunity to do a land acknowledgement. Lompoc means standing water or lagoon in Purísimo Niño language by the Chumash people. And I want to acknowledge the Chumash people who are the traditional custodian of this land. And I pay my respect to the Chumash elders, past, present, and future, for they hold the memory, the tradition, and the culture of this area. And now I would like to, if all goes well, I can share this PowerPoint, which we were having some issue with initially, but you should be able to see it. Yes? Okay, great. So for this afternoon lecture, I actually have a title is called From Stakeholder to Searching for Zero Impact Sculpture. And I have written a really short summary of my practice in the last 30 years, for those of you not familiar with my work. From 1995 to 2006, I have created work on plastic. And in 2004, my Power Tower project led me to Iceland to study non-fossil fuel energy generation and mental health. And the 2007 Sink Like a Submarine exhibition examined military material and technology. And in 2009, I launched my Quantum Shirley series to prototype the plasticity of narrative. In 2016, Lift Me Up So I Can See Better exhibition addressed economic disparity. And my recent work underscored the stake we all hold amid our fragile democracy and climate emergency. So this talk only focused on the recent work. And I would like to share with you the project called Stakeholder, which is the work that I made for the Venice Biennale in 2019, as well as mostly free video that I now kind of loosely title it under the In Search of Zero Impact Sculpture series, but it's ongoing. So right now it's sort of like a nice trilogy that together with some sculpture. That is the plan. So here's an image of the 2019 Hong Kong pavilions in Venice, and the title is Stakeholder. And I have a video documentation of the show because it kind of shows you how the work is laid out in space, as well as the sound element of the installation. So here I will put. I'm going to talk over some of these ambient sound, if that's okay with you all. In this exhibition, there is an installation, and outdoor installation. The installation is titled "Negotiated Differences." It's made of hand-carved wood spindle and 3D printed joints. And it's combining old and new technology. You know, the old technology is like carving wood on the lathe, and the new technology is the 3D print. It's also combining subtractive and additive forms. So the carving is taking materials away, and the 3D print is adding material. And there's no fixed configuration of how it can be connected. And then what we're looking at right now is the outdoor installation. Is titled Play Court, and it's an imagined scenario of playing street badminton over a middle line of really delicate sculpture, including antenna for ham radio or armature radio. And the choice of badminton reference to colonial history of Hong Kong. And I also want to evoke the concept of reclaiming public space, and as in the case of playing street badminton. And then you can hear the radio sound. And then armature radio is also incorporated in the installation. What you're hearing is the live radio conversation in the region. So, and that is, the radio is another example of reclaiming public space, you know, as an air wave is the public domain. And now you're seeing, going back to the indoor pieces, it's called stakeholder because in terms of, you see a lot of stake form and focal form, but also conceptually I've addressed the idea of stakeholder, which we will talk about a little bit after this video. It's an alternative to the binary opposition between individual versus the collective. Because stakeholder is still singular, but it's not isolated, it's not discrete. It talks about holding stick together, interdependence, and the alternative to competition, which is collaboration, agency, and taking ownership. And you can see it's called negotiated difference because I want to bring order as many kind of difference as possible. You can see different wood. You know, none of it is stained. So I picked the tissue that has color, and then you can domestic object. You know, outdoors object. There's musical instrument. There is abstract forms. There's representation forms. So they're all kind of bring together using no nail or screw, and then they kind of have to be joined together in a certain angle to fight gravity together, basically. That was the stakeholder piece, and then here is a I was doing my research. I thought I know what stakeholder means, you know, in kind of everyday language and meeting, you know, we use that word, but then I was like, wait, what does that actually mean? So I went to do some research, and it turns out that it's concept borrowing from economics, in particularly management theory. So it was first published in 1984, and a stakeholder is any group or individual who can affect or affected by the achievement of a corporation purpose. So, oh, how come it's not advancing? Oh, there you go. Okay. So if you think of it, it's a relational view of business, and it's not making any distinction between economic or non-economic, which is the social business, or it's not making any distinction between business and non-business. By this, they mean that, in the traditional management theory, they only care about the people. Let's say, for example, in a company, you only care about the stockholder, the shareholder, and the management, the employee, maybe government regulation body, but then our customer, but then they don't really consider anything else, because that is not within the confine of business. But within the stakeholder theory, they actually care for everyone, including the community member in which the company is situated. So even though, there's neighbors next to the company, they are part of, they're holding stake to the health of the company. So that is a very kind of revolutionary concept back in the 80s. And then they talk about where stakeholder interests conflict, there is an opportunity for value creation, which I find is really interesting. What they're talking about is actually, it's not a zero-sum game, because you are caring for all the party involved, which is actually everyone. So instead of seeing things as conflict like in the traditional sense, conflict arise, they see it as expanding the pie, so maybe take a step back and reevaluate, why what is actually involved here, and then there might be opportunity to see something that is not part of your criteria before. So, and the concept of stakeholder is actually more important in society when people are disenfranchised, because when you're disenfranchised, maybe you don't bear the title of a shareholder or a voter. Maybe you can't vote, or homeowner, you don't own anything, but you're always a stakeholder. And that is a default term to remind those in power that these people do matter. And in the same way, it is the term to empower everyone. So here's a summary of the stakeholder theory. Instead of shareholder, everyone affected should have a voice. And the focus on collaboration rather than competition. And it highlights the uneven stake we each hold. If you remember in the title, images for it's actually that black and white photos. It is a shot from the installation where we need to have at least like 3 people holding the different component and then try to figure out the actual angle for them to be joined in order to stay upright, because there's no screw or glue involved. And then, a lot of time we have to balance the weight of different wood, a different shape, a different length. And also, conceptually, we want to balance, something that is perhaps abstract versus representational, or indoor object versus outdoor object, and so forth. So anyway, and then this is very much a site responsive work. So there's it's close to 1,000 components altogether, about 500 wooden spindle and another 500 3D printed connectors. And it's a little bit of like a game. So every time when I'm invited to show this piece, it's going to respond to the architecture of that specific space. The video documentation you saw was in Venice, Italy. And this is actually in M+ Museum in Hong Kong. So the architecture is totally different. And as you can see, it has a very industrial looking ceiling. So I want to address that the site specifically. So we decided to negotiate the difference to negotiate with the ceiling and to kind of go and climb up the ceiling and follow the contour. And then also in Hong Kong, I want to address some cultural aspect of Hong Kong, and there's a big eating culture in Hong Kong. So I thought, maybe one of the configuration could look like a table top with chopstick on top and like teacups and soy sauce bottle, which is what you see in the details there. And then also back in 2019 and 2020, Hong Kong experienced a large-scale protest. And I want to also reflect the daily landscape of the city. And one of the things I saw is the protester using barricade. And some of these barricades are very mangled, after certain activity. So we try to come up with a configuration that look like a mango barricade. And the other piece that was outdoor, now that is in Hong Kong, is becoming like in Venice, it's set up like a badminton game that you can almost play from both sides. But here in Hong Kong, because it's in a state of flux, we don't know. There's a lot of change going on with the city ordinance during the protest. We don't know whether this game has yet to begin, it's already over. So the installation is now in a state of limbo. And because it's a badminton game, you got to have a birdie. I don't know if in the video documentation you can see so clearly. The birdie is a sculpture. It's actually 6 of them. They kind of disperse in the space. And it is titled Quantum Shirley Shuttlepod. Instead of shuttlecock, it's called shuttlepod because it's made of cast synthetic rubber and vanilla bean pod. And these two material, rubber and vanilla, has an origin to my mother's family history. And she was born and raised in Malaysia, and her family was involved in the cultivation of rubber for the British, and then our extended family also moved to Tahiti to work for the French in the Tahiti plantation. So both rubber and vanilla beans are a colonial trade product that was involved in my family history. So I really want to create a kind of visual trajectory of the trading going back and forth, as if in the badminton game, you're going back and forth as if the colonial trade going back and forth. Okay, so, and this is like in 2020 during COVID lockdown, and I have a lot of time to read, and then I come across an old quote, a reading that I was reading when I was in undergrad at Berkeley, and and then reading it again in 2020, it kind of shocked me to see that we have not moved very far. But anyway, it's a quote from Wendell Berry and from this book called The World Ending Fire. It's been republished. It was written in 1970 for once, and then was republished in 2020. And even back in the 90s, when I first read this quote, it was already about 20, 30 years old, but then now it's like 50 years old, and still I think our world has not changed very much. And I like to read this together with you. A better possibility is that the movement to preserve the environment will be seen to be, as I think it has to be, not a digression from the civil rights and peace movement, but the logical culmination of those movements. For I believe that the separation of these 3 problems is artificial. They have the same cause, and that is the mentality of greed and exploitation. The mentality that exploits and destroys the natural environment is the same that abuses racial and economic minorities, that imposes on young men the tyranny of the military draft, that make war against peasants and women and children with the indifference of technology. The mentality that destroy a watershed and then panic at the threat of a flood is the same mentality that gives institutionalized insult to Black people and then panic at the prospect of race riot. It's the same mentality that can mount deliberate warfare against a civilian population and then express moral shock at the logical consequences of such warfare as My Lai, which is, referencing Vietnam War or the American War, as they would say in Vietnam. We would be fools to believe that we could solve any of these problems without solving the other. We talk about intersectional, climate justice being intersectional to racial justice and environmental justice and social justice. And I just think that, this quote just say that so eloquently. Okay, okay. So I was working with the concept stakeholders and, and the quote remind me that the biggest stake we all hold is climate change. And that quite literally shifted my recent work in the last 3-4 years. Okay, where I am, I'm a little lost right now. Okay, here, that's right. So now I'm gonna, we're moving up to, I was working on the idea of climate change. And then I thought I would start with where I am because during a pandemic, I want to seek way to have a more sustainable art practice. And by sustainable, I don't just mean ecology. When I talk about sustainability is often at least 3-pronged, if not more than 3. So it's sustainable in terms of ecology, and then sustainable in terms of economic or finance, and then also sustainable in terms of mental health. And so, and Los Angeles had become quite unsustainable for me. And so I moved to Lompoc, California, which and trying to find a model where I can work as an artist in a more sustainable way. And then this is a video. I hope that I can find a way. Oh, I actually skipped it. Okay, we have to go back and all right, hang on 1 second. There is some here. Okay. And this is a video. I have to go back to the very beginning. That video is included in a show called Lump Stories and at the Shoshana Wayne Gallery in Los Angeles in 2022. So that video was shown on a screen outside the gallery, and when you walk into the gallery, then you will see a few more sculpture that is part of the lump story. And for example, this one is called lump story series Spacesuit. And what you're seeing is a snake skin that is wearing fiber optic, so to speak. And then it's anchored by diatomaceous earth, which I mentioned in the video, that is the substance, the earth that is one of the industry in Lombok. And here's a detail. And so what happened is that in my current work, I actually make a rule. In my search for zero impact sculpture, I make a rule for myself that I'm not gonna use new store-bought material for my art anymore. So I'm only using material that I already have. It could be old art supplies I still have in my studio, that's okay. And things that I can source around me. So when I live in LA, I did use a lot of found object. And typically they will be in a city, there will be like kind of urban detritus. And now that I'm, among vineyards and farmland, I find myself using a lot of, non-human stakeholders, a lot of animals, minerals, flower seed that enter into my studio. For example, this piece is called The Discipline of DE, which is borrowing a title from a William Burroughs novel. But DE stands for do easy in the novel's case, but then it also stands for diatomaceous earth, DE. And I carved these diatomaceous earth, they kind of fell off from the side. I just pick it up from the road. It's not like I went around and used a chisel. It's not like that at all. So they just broke off, and then I just pick it up from the road. And then I will carve them into the microscopic form of the diatomaceous earth, which is like a kind of a microscopic algae. So that's the form you see. And the wood come from leftover wood from the last project you saw. And then one of them, actually, the middle one is actually a branch from my backyard. And it's really fragile. If I drop it, it will break into pieces. And I actually do want to address the fragility of our life world in the show. And this is a piece with a flower seed. And actually, we need to move forward a little bit because I want to get to the Arctic piece. And this one has tar, beach tar in it. And this one it's called Crow Strike. And there is made of a helmet, but then to the right side, you can see roughly a shape of a bird, because it kind of addressed an experience I had when I was on a motorcycle. I was being struck by a raven. And it was like kind of a near-death experience, but I survived. And but we were experiencing a lot of fire in California at that time. Well, now we're experiencing it again this year, but this is back around 2018. And then I keep hearing, oh, this is like the state biggest wildfire. And then, 2 months later, you hear the same thing. Oh, this is the state biggest wildfire. And so I went into one of these burn song, and I look for the form that will composite a raven, a bird. And that's how the form comes along. I did not carve it. So this is all found shape that I do use hardware to connect them. And okay, so let's move. Oh, actually, this is kind of important. So one of the aspect of this show is I want to address sustainability in terms of finance economics. So the pricing is actually a conceptual piece itself. So I price all the work exactly the same price, and actually maybe you'll be able to read this description. The economic disparity in our art world is painfully unsustainable. As a response, the pricing of these work reflect one fixed cost of my practice, which is studio rent. Lumpo's story began as Los Angeles became unsustainable to me. I wish to shift the focus from commodity to sustaining the condition of making work. So you can see that. And kudos to my gallery who would, willing to entertain this piece, the price as a conceptual piece here. And then, fall 2023, because I am also an educator and I've been an educator for a long time, I usually, my teaching and my practice are very symbiotic. So, and I thought, it's time for me to teach a class about sustainability. So, and especially in terms of sculpture too. So like what I said when I talk about sustainability is ecosystem, finance, and mental health, and then also particularly for sculpture, how do we reframe constraint and policing and possibility and liberation so that it's not just limit, or you're not policing people. Oh, this is too much carbon footprint. And operating on material, especially with extraction and production, fabrication, transport, and real estate. And this real estate means storage. Sculpture need a lot of space for storage. Sculpture is particularly positioned to examine various injustice inherent in the art infrastructure today. How do we disentangle obfuscated notions such as art effectiveness or claiming moral high ground? If the logistic associated with exhibition making is unsustainable, shall we ask if exhibition is essential? And what lesson have we learned from the pandemic about sculpture incompatibility to screen mode? And so that is the course. And alongside with the course, I also applied to this residency called the Arctic Circle residency, which took place in the Arctic Circle in the North Pole, not the South Pole. I was talking to Sarah earlier today. And my proposal is titled Do Nothing. And I was surprised that I was accepted to go to this residency and do nothing. So I want to see, it's around a group of island called Svalbard. It's in the Norwegian territory. I want to see Svalbard because it's a place where climate change is 6 times more accelerated than the rest of the world. So it's certainly challenging to make sculpture on board a ship against all the elements. So, which make it more poignant to even contemplate the question, what does that mean to do nothing, or at least put thing on hold? What does a zero impact sculpture look like? Okay, so, and I made a video that's about 13 minutes. So I'm gonna screen it right now.
Satchidananda Parabamba Prabhushuttama Paramatama Shri Bhagavati Sameta Shri Bhagavati Nama Aryam Satta Aryam Satta Aryam Satta Aryam Satta.
Okay, wait. Go forward. Okay. Oh, there. Wow, when you show time-based media, times really slip away. So this work was included in a solo show at PCC in 2023. Now I actually cannot remember. And it's called Portal and Arctic. And in the interest of time, I'm just gonna skip through these slide because I want to get to the most recent work. Oh, by the way, I'm only using existing material, and so in the one of the sculpture using was actually kind of the props left over from a performance I did with a number of amazing artist teacher. You might recognize some of them at Red Cat. So that is the prop we use, and then I end up to be in my sculpture. Anyway, so one of the sculpture for the Arctic part is called ice skating, which I think is very kind of funny. That because in that performance that we were also using skate, so there was some skate left over, so I was using that, and ice skating because ice is sick of being skated on, so they put on skate and escape. There you go. All right, so now I want to show the last piece this afternoon, so we'll save some time for Q&A. And this piece is about 10 minutes, I think. And it's called Orkney Moon. It's made in Orkney, Scotland. It's actually, tonight is the premiere in the US because I'm about to show this piece in Iceland this late summer. And so it has not been shown yet. So I'm happy to share this with you if this video would play.
但係幾時先甩啊？
踢多幾下咯，幾靚啊！
甩咗之後都未補得翻喎，佢係甩咗已經甩咗咯。
咁咪唔補翻咯，話你阿妹都唔想補咯。我呢個 project 唔係好 flexible 噶嘛，
唔係一定要有
係
喎。
係啊，
你呢啲痕跡好靚啊！
係咯，啲痕跡好靚，已經見晒嗰啲六角形出嚟啦，
係咯，
好犀利，
係咯，
我都好滿意啊，已經
係咯，
又有綠色喎。
係咯。
哦，原來呢度咧係 missing 嘅，咁呢個咧就唔係 original 咯，你明唔明？咁你覺得邊個方法好啲？你中意做呢個？呢個咧就比較真係。Okay. I think I will stop here and save some time for our conversation.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah. So we have some questions coming in on the YouTube stream. But actually, I think I'll just start with a quick one, which so I really appreciated the videos, like the the text, this like diaristic text, this direct address to the viewer, also your use of sound in the videos. But so I was wondering if you could just talk a little more about the relationship of the video works to the sculptures and installation.
Oh, absolutely. I think well, this is a situation where it doesn't work because you actually hear my voice. I mean, like in an exhibition situation, I won't be there, so you actually won't hear my physical voice. You only, you can imagine what my voice is, what my subjectivity is, and then actually in Lumpok's story, the very first one, there was no image. I kind of jokingly call that is like is not actually a video, is an a video as it's not a non-video, but then it's an anyway. So because it's an imageless video, and that just allow your viewer or your audience to have that room for imagination. I think a lot of things about climate change is we don't know how we're going to get out of this mess. And I think it's really important to have that openness and encourage imagination. And that was part of the strategy to use that a lot of black screen with voice. And then also I want to address, I mean, like I was born and raised in Hong Kong, and growing up, I actually watch a lot of foreign film, and then this, including American, US film, and they are all subtitled. And I would always have a hard time following the film because I have to read the subtitle. And so it was actually like a childhood fantasy for me that, oh, one day it would be great to actually watch a film that's just subtitled so I can understand everything without having to follow the image. So I guess, yeah, I don't know if I actually answered your question, but that is, that is a kind of space. In terms of sculpture space, I like to think of that blank space with the text is like a space that you don't hear the sound, you don't hear the acoustic, but then it visually create that space for you. So hope that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, excellent. All right, we have a question from Corral, who you met with. So she says, as an international artist engaged with all aspects of sustainability, how do you see your work contributing to the conversation about the local impacts of the crisis, especially in regions like SoCal, which are prone to extreme climate events? And how do you hope to address the urgency to audiences who may not yet feel the full stakes of the climate emergency?
Wow, I wish I know how to answer. I wish. What a great question. And I think we're all grappling with that. Like what can we do? How can we do it? What can we do that have efficacy? What can we claim what I do is able to solve anything? You see in the lecture, I talk about, I made a really drastic decision a few years ago to not use any store-bought material. So in a way, that was my own personal response to this situation, this climate emergency that we have. And I think doing less is definitely one way. The do nothing and the non-productivity is about seeing the world and how I perceive the world and how I try thing and find a way to realign it. If I can reduce my role as a consumer only in my artwork, then maybe it will do something. Well, look, in my personal everyday life, it's very difficult to do nothing. It's very difficult to live a totally sustainable life because, I still live within this capitalistic society. So I still have to abide by the mechanics. of a capitalistic society. So it's very hard to live outside of it. So, but I see that within my art practice, this is where I can have the choice, you know. Within my art practice, I can figure out the perimeter. I can have this option that makes sense to me. So this is why I choose in my art practice to do nothing, you know, no store-bought material, because actually in my everyday life it's harder to do that. So I don't know, maybe that kind of answers some of that aspect.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Okay, we have one question from Patricia, who says, do you intentionally use humor to balance the seriousness of your subject matter, or are you just naturally a funny person?
To say it's the latter. Maybe a little bit of both. I do think humor or sense of lightness, it does help abate this heaviness, you know, the weightiness of this situation. But at the same time, I think, you know, I think poetry is kind of funny, right? It's like using poetic device can be very funny sometimes. So, and I like to think that within my visual strategy, you know, I use a lot of poetics to it, and I think that in some case that poetic comes across as humor. So, but I think I'm kind of a funny person too.
Also naturally funny, yeah. Okay, and we have one from Sarah. So she asks, she thanks you, and then says, you mentioned agency and collaboration in your practice. So could you expand on the ways in which you see collaboration manifesting in your work across both humans and non-humans?
Yeah, again, I did not have time to show, oh, maybe I can do it right now, to show this quote, which is about, actually, I think I want to do that. It's not very long, which is our breathing. Okay, here. So I think this will answer the question. So just look at our own breathing as like, which are basic facts. So I don't know, I myself been doing yoga for over 20 years. I don't think I realized this until maybe 5-6 years ago, which was shocking to me. From yoga anatomy, it's important to note that in spite of how it feels when you inhale, you do not actually pull air into the body. On the contrary, air is pushed into the body by the atmospheric pressure, 14.7 pounds per square inch, that always surround you. This means that the actual force that gets air into the lungs is outside the body. The energy expended in breathing produces a shape change that lower the pressure in the chest cavity and permit the air to be pushed into the body by the weight of the planet atmosphere. In other words, you create the space and the universe feels it. So just from this very basic fact of our breathing, we forget. When we breathe, we think that we are individual, you know, we are the self, you know, we have the self-identity. And when we breathe air, it's easy to think that I am taking air from the environment, which is neutral. I'm taking it and then I'm putting it back, right? So, but that's so not true. It's so not true. The fact is, you know, the force, the energy that allowed me to breathe is already, you know, it's already in relation between me and the rest of the universe. So I think this very fact shows that the idea of having a self or having you know, or being an individual is such an illusion, you know, that is a separate discrete unit is such an illusion, that the fact that we are already interdependent, we're already existing in a relational way, you know, the energy are formed by relations. So this is why in my recent work, I really want to focus on, I'm really drawn to collaboration now. I'm doing a lot of collaboration. to emphasize the fact that it's to, I guess, to move away from the emphasis of the individual artist, you know, the sort of celebrity model. And the agency is actually a misnomer. If you read Karen Barad, you know, they use the notion of agential realism, so which is an an active word. So it's not that agency is not a thing you own, you know, even though in everyday language we want to say, oh, we want to take agency, you want to have agency, but it's not a thing you own, but it's only emphasizing the subject as the agent. You know, you have this you're agential rather than you have agency. So you're agential because you're already in this interdependent model that you could do something that will have an effect to bodies around you.
Excellent. Okay, we have a question from Michelle, who's still on the Zoom with us, but she says, "What is your relationship to documentation of place and experiences, and how do you choose what to show versus what not to show?"
Excellent question. This question, I'm thinking about it currently. I would say all the video you saw does have documentary aspect, but they are not documentation. I see them as narrative more than documentation, but of course it has aspect documentation because it addresses this residency or this place. They're very place-based. And so with that, it's more about narrative because look, it's very difficult. I'm still contemplating the answer to the question is what does a zero impact sculpture look like, you know? So, and I don't think I have a very clear answer still, even though it's been a few years now. But in order to talk about this journey, you know, this process of looking for a way to make art more sustainable, I find that the best thing I can do right now is to tell a story of what happened and what I'm thinking about. So that's why, even though I did not see myself as a video artist, and I don't even know, you know, I don't even know if I should call it video in the form of like a video artist video. You know, I don't even see that, so I don't even know what to call them. The time-based pieces in for the series called In the Search of Zero Impact Sculpture. I think that's what you can call them. So yeah, and then also if you remember in the Arctic piece, one of the goal I have is to focus on being present rather than representation. So I think inherent in that question is a question about representation. Indeed, it is something that is very tricky. I don't think we can live our life without representation in all aspects of it. But at the same time, I think having an awareness of what kind of framing that one is used when one is using representation, or having the awareness what kind of burden you may be bearing if you're representing something. I think that's most important to me, to have the awareness of it. But I don't think I have perfect answer to Michelle's question.
All right, well, let's see. We'll just wait. Let's see if we have any final questions coming in. And if not, we'd just like to give you wonderful thanks for your talk today. So I'm sure, you know, we really appreciate you joining us as part of the guest speaker series.
Thank you so much, Robert.
Yeah.
I enjoy showing my work.
Thank you, Shirley. Thank you, everybody that has participated in the lecture series. Thank you, Robert, and thank you, Michelle, for introducing. Super good.
Excellent. And I hope to meet in person.
I know,
yeah.
right?
Yes.
There
In
was
MoMA.
something in the chat. Oh, those are the question. Okay.
We covered them.
Okay.
So,
I'm just reading the chat right now.
um,
Yeah, hope to see you in person soon.
yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Shirley. Have a great night. Yeah. Good night, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Yeah.